Today we're gonna do wildlife photo editing again, and this time I have Christian Hartman. You can find his Instagram at Chaipeau, and you can see he has some really cool wildlife photos. He focused on monochrome fine art photography, and you can really tell he has his own kind of style of editing. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can create the same effect on your own wildlife photos. You can use your own photo, or you can use the photo that I have in the description of the video. You can follow along with the same steps as I do, and we will create this same effect. Keep in mind that these videos are made for educational purposes only, and not for you to go and copy someone's style. That's really not cool. That's not the reason for these videos. These videos are made so you can learn from someone else's style and create your own style. So keep in mind that being unique is really important and not just copying someone else. That's not cool. If you want to learn more about wildlife photo editing, I have a wildlife photo editing course where I go a lot deeper in all the details. So check that one out. There is a discount in the description of the video. Right, so let's go into this video and start creating. All right, into Photoshop. Let's open up this photo and do some editing. Now, the first thing I would like to do here is I would like to add a black and white filter to make this photo black and white first. Now, we can see the settings are pretty good here, so I'm gonna leave them at default. The next thing I would like to do here is I would like to add a curves adjustment layer to change the contrast a bit. Now here you can see we have the darker tones, the midtones and the highlights. So what I would like to do is I would like to take the midtones and move them slightly down to get some nice black tones here. Right, so that's for the curves. Now let's create a new layer, and here I'm gonna go to Edit, Fill, and select 50% gray. And then when we change the blend mode to overlay, we can use the burn tool. And with the burn tool, we can make some areas darker. The burn tool you can find here. Here we have the settings of the burn tool. We have to go for midtones here with a range of, let's say, around 25. And what I would like to do here is I would like to brush some areas darker. So I would make this side a bit darker, because you can see lighting is coming from that side. You can see on its face, this side has some shadows. So lighting is coming from that side. So I want to make this side slightly darker, and also these areas where we can see some shadows. So let's just simply brush these areas a little bit darker. So we have a realistic shadow, but slightly darker than the original photo. So I'm going to brush them here, maybe also here, here, here. And that's pretty much it. I don't have to do much here. Now let's select a dodge tool now. I'm gonna use the same layer because I don't want to brush too much. The only thing I'm gonna brush here is the eyes. Let's make the exposure a bit higher. I'm gonna make the eyes lighter because I don't want to lose the eyes. I think those are pretty important. So the first thing I'll brush here is the eyes. And also let's drop the exposure slightly here. And also a bit of the fur on these areas where we have some rim lights, right? So this is just at the edge of his ears here, a bit there, a bit here. Don't brush too much or else you're gonna lose the details. It's gonna get blown out. So let's just simply brush these areas a little bit lighter. Let's do a bit there, maybe some of this fur here that's sticking out, and also this area where its face ends, like that. And it's already enough. Now let's see what we made. We had this, and now we have this, and you can see how cool this already looks. Now the next thing that I would like to do is I would like to create a new layer, and then I'm gonna press Command Alt Shift E or Control Alt Shift E on Windows, and I would like to add a blur. So I'm gonna go to Filter, Blur, select Gaussian Blur, and I'm gonna blur this out like this. I have a range of 50, and then I will change this blend mode from normal to soft light. And I'm gonna drop the opacity here, let's say around 50 maybe, something like this. It's a bit dark now, but it will get better on the next step. And that's exactly what we're gonna do now. We're gonna create a new layer, and then I'm gonna press Command Alt Shift E or Control Alt Shift E. And now we have this layer here. And if we press right mouse, convert to smart object, then we're gonna go to Filter, camera raw filter. Let's make this photo better with the settings here. The exposure I'm gonna leave as it is. I'm gonna drop the contrast here so you have a bit more gray tones. Then I'm also gonna drop the highlights here slightly. Shadows I'm gonna leave as they are. I'm gonna increase the whites here so you have a bit lighter photo. And let's also make the black slightly lighter. Now let's move down to effects. Here we can change this also. Let's increase the clarity so we can really see the details like that. And I'm also gonna drop the dehaze a bit here so it gets a bit lighter. Something like this. Let's move down. Here we have the highlights. And what I do with this curve is I would like to add some lights because remember we made this a bit darker, so I would like to make it lighter now. And I'm also gonna increase the darks here. And let's also increase the shadows here. And I can see we already made this image a lot lighter. Let's move all the way down here. Here we have blending that we don't need. I'm gonna increase the sharpening here because I wanna have this really sharp. So I'm gonna go all the way to 150 and also add some noise reduction so it doesn't get too choppy now when I have this really soft. So I'm gonna increase this just like that. Now you can see we made this softer. All right, I think this is enough. Maybe some vignette here, just a little bit of vignette so we get some darker outer parts. Let's do a little bit less, just like that. And that's already enough. Now let's create a new layer on top of this. And I'm gonna use the brush tool. You can press B on your keyboard or you can select them here. And then we take a white color and let's keep the flow and opacity 100 and make sure you have the soft round brush. And actually let's drop the flow here. Let's say around 20. And I'm gonna make like these areas lighter. So I'm just clicking everywhere on the left side where we have lighting to make this slightly lighter like that. And then I'm gonna drop the opacity. So you have a little bit of a softer side like that. Now we can also play with the blend mode here. Let's try out one of these, maybe soft light overlay. Let's see. I'm gonna increase the opacity here again, just like that. I think this looks great. All right, the next step is to create a new layer and then press Ctrl Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E to have a duplicated version of everything. Then I'm gonna go to Filter, Blur, and I'm gonna select Lens Blur. And I'm gonna blur this out all the way from 0 to 100. So at the radius, select 100, press OK. Now we have this really blurred out photo, but I'm gonna make a mask on this. And if I click on the mask, press Ctrl or Command I to invert this, to make this black. And now let's increase the flow here again to 100. And with a white brush, I can brush areas that I want to blur. So I want to blur outer parts a bit like that. So we have a kind of field of depth of field, however you say it. And this way we can create some depth in this image. Now, just make sure you don't brush too much, just a little bit on the outer parts. And if you brush too much, just switch to black and brush it back. So you want to make sure the details are still visible, but some areas that are out of the frame, like at the border here, maybe in the back, are a bit blurred out, and we get this really nice effect of a depth like that. And I can see how great this looks. I'm gonna blur a little bit less here, like that. Just a little bit of this blur that gives this extra effect to this photo. The next step that I would like to do is I would like to make the details better. So I'm gonna go to the top layer. I'm gonna create a new layer and press Ctrl Alt Shift E or Command Option Shift E, and then go to Filter, Other, and select High Pass. And here we can make the details better. And here we need to select a radius where we can see these white details. So don't go too much because you're gonna ruin the image. Just a low range of radius where you can see those white like details of this photo. So somewhere around this area, press OK. And the only thing you need to do is change this from normal to hard light, or soft light also works. For this photo, I'm gonna go for hard light, and I'm gonna drop the opacity here a bit. And this will give more of the details. When you zoom in here, you can see when I disable this and enable this, you can see all those details. That's exactly what I want. Now let's create a light effect. Let's create a new layer and take a brush tool, make sure it's white, and at the settings, select soft round. And I'm gonna make a dot, not too big, just somewhere in the center. And with the move tool, I'm gonna move it there. And with Ctrl T, I can resize this. Let's make it bigger. And I'm gonna hold down Ctrl and stretch out one corner. So we have kind of a light beam coming from there. Maybe like that, and rotate it a bit, just like that. And I will drop the opacity here so it doesn't ruin the image too much. Just a little bit of light coming from the top side there. And with Ctrl J, I can duplicate this layer and move it down so we have a bit more light from there. Maybe less visible there. Just play around with the opacity here so it gets a little bit in this shot from there. You can also duplicate it 3 times. Maybe you want to have more lighting like that. And I think this looks great. If you feel that your image is a bit too dark and you want to have less contrast, you can go down here and add a brightness contrast adjustment layer. And you can take the contrast and drop this all the way down or at the range lower. And you can see here we get more of these gray tones. And here we can also play with the lighting a bit. So this depends on your photo, of course. For this photo, we could drop this a bit. I would leave the brightness and drop the contrast a bit like that. We have this kind of more grayish image. So this depends on how gray you want to have your photo. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see other wildlife photo editing videos, make sure to check out my other videos. Until then, catch you on the next video.